So hello and welcome to another episode of Analog Insights. In today's episode, I'd like to pilot a new format, which I will call personal exposure, because I'm exposing what I do, think and read photography related that doesn't really fit into the existing formats like the gear reviews, book reviews, or the story behind the shoot sessions. And the motivation was that many of you reached out to me via comment sections or Instagram asking about, for instance, my Paris photos that I've recently taken and released a few of them on Instagram stories, or some of the male models that I've started to shoot for various reasons that I will touch on in a minute. And to get room for that, even if it was not possible to create an entire video about it, and still share also some perspectives on photography based on what I currently read and think about. So please, as always, let me know in the comment section below whether this creates any kind of value to you, and if not, please let me know as well, because as said, it's just a pilot, so trial and error here. First, I'd like to talk about a recent trip to Paris. So I traveled together with my partner in crime to Paris for the Paris Fashion Week, and we did the usual stuff. So we roamed the streets of the Marais, had a café crème and petit déjeuner in beautiful cafes, and also visited a couple of showrooms for her business. But besides that, I started to take a couple of street shots again and realized that taking these, when I got the results, I realized that taking these in a different environment also changed how I looked at that environment and the world, and at street shots in general. And that was really interesting because I used the very same camera as I do here in Munich, which is the Leica M6 with a 50mm Summicron and a 28mm Elmarit spherical. But it felt different, and the images became much more meaningful to me. And somewhat connected to that, I recently started to read a beautiful book about interviews and conversations, and I have it here, with Henri Cartier-Bresson, taken between or conducted between 1951 and 1998. And in this book, Henri Cartier-Bresson talks about, of course, his photography, but on very different levels. So you learn about the individual settings of certain images that he has taken. Really the shutter speed and aperture, which I actually found interesting, but also about what motivated him to help co-found the Magnum Photo Agency, and most importantly, his background in painting and his strong preference for this medium and drawing and painting and composition in general. So he was heavily influenced by Paul Cézanne, for instance. One of the quotes that I really have to share with you from this book is this here, the definition of photography by Bresson. And he says, quote, "Photography, the way I think of it, is a drawing, a freehand immediate sketch made with intuition and that you can't correct. If you have to correct it, it's with the next picture. But life is very fluid. Sometimes the pictures disappear, and there's nothing you can do. You can't tell the person, oh, please smile again, do that gesture again. Life is once and for all, and it's new every time." So besides the fact that this is a beautiful definition of photography, it also touches on this immediate sketch idea. So this is a sketch that is created in that particular moment in time, and it also touches on something that is important, plays an important role throughout the entire book and all the conversations, and that is intuition. In my perception, Henri Cartier-Bresson was an artist using his intuition to immerse himself in a moment, and then find exactly that decisive moment that he keeps talking about. And interestingly, Robert Capa encouraged him to brand himself as a photojournalist instead of being branded as a photosurrealist. And Capa saw a likelihood that this might happen if Cartier-Bresson continues to shoot the kind of images that he did, because of course they had perfect composition. Composition played an important role to him, and there are all sorts of videos out there about Henri Cartier-Bresson and his compositions. And he even it was not allowed for publishers to crop his images because his composition was so important to him. And there are repeated passages in this book where he says, okay, if your composition was not good in that particular moment in time when you took that image, there's nothing that can help it. There's no reason to crop it, just take another better image. And he's really going down to that millimeter dimension where he says, okay, you have to work your subject, you have to move around it, you have to play with the light and have to play with your framing and composition to get that perfect shot, to get that decisive moment. And you also shouldn't overshoot. You should be careful to listen to your intuition and instinct and observe the situation and get that perfect right shot. And that really inspired me on so many levels. And I was also inspired by this idea, especially in the earlier interviews, that he said, we as photojournalists play a crucial role at that particular moment in time after the Second World War of bridging the gap between the different countries and bringing the world together again and creating important images of different cultures that can be shared across the entire world. And there's one little section that I also like that he says, okay, I read a lot of newspapers like Le Monde and the New York Times and so forth that are primarily text-based back then, of course, because that enables me to create my own image in my own head and decide where I want to go and where I would assume to be the most interesting images. And then, of course, he used Magnum as the agency as a vehicle to get to these places and to also get hired by large magazines like Life magazine back then and do these kinds of photojournalistic works. So much about this topic. Another thing that is kind of an ongoing process is that, especially towards the second half of last year, I slowly got into a photographic crisis. Looking at my own Instagram account, I felt like, okay, it's okay, it's solid work, it's nice portraits, but at the same time it doesn't feel really special. It feels like many other black and white portrait accounts out there. And is that really all I have to say with my photography and all that I want to do with my photography? And there were also important friends that just feedback me, Max, looking at your images, two female friends, one is 20 years my senior, and she basically said, I see a lot of, how did she say, and I have to look that up here, she said, young women with a seductive catch me if you can look on their faces, is what one friend said, and the other friend said, it all looks the same, they all look the same. And that really, of course, hurt me to some extent, but also moved me in a positive way, as it sparked a curiosity about, isn't there more, and isn't there more that I could do and how I could develop my photography further. And I basically decided, okay, I want to stick to portraits and develop that further, but also go more into fashion photography and work a bit more with male models. So one thing I did is I just reached out to my primary agency that I'm working together with, Most Wanted Models here in Munich, and asked them, hey, could you just send me the list of available male models for test shootings? I'd like to give that a try. And what happened is I had a wonderful first portrait/fashion shoot experience with Ilyes, and you can see some of the images here that I shot using my Mamiya RZ67, and so really a trusted workhorse for these kinds of portraits, and I love the quality that I get out of it. I shot some Ilford Delta 100 here, and a Bronica Square, so a 6x6 camera with a 50mm wide-angle lens, and I'm showing you some of the images here as well. That it was that's actually on loan by some of the viewers who brought it here to me to Munich and passed it on to me and said, okay, just keep it and use it for a year and then I will pick it up again. And I really appreciate if you're seeing this that you did that. And I put it to some good use here, I think. So for me, this was an important revelation of moving forward and shooting some male models for a change. I'm going more in the fashion direction, also pushing the model to come up with more interesting styles. That worked really great, and I'm keen to explore that a bit more. Then last but not least, this morning, Jules and I were on a little photo fair here in Munich. And while browsing around, I also thought about gear again and the relevance of gear, and that potentially this whole channel, due to the amount of gear reviews we're currently doing, might potentially look like this is all about gear, and that photography to me is all about gear. And it's not. For me, a camera is just a tool that is an invitation to take certain kinds of photographs. In other words, for me, the Leica M6 primarily encourages me to go out and shoot street, or to take it with me when traveling and looking at the world through that rangefinder and doing certain compositions because of the way the camera works. It invites me to take certain kinds of photographs. In the same way, the Mamiya RZ67 is for me my perfect camera if I want to go out and shoot fashion or portraits. That's ideal. It has everything it needs, and it just gives me the kind of results and intimacy that I want. And also is an invitation to work slow and to take my time and to make conscious moves and to not rush the model as well. And like that, I have a mental framework of which camera can do what for me, and that's the purpose of the gear. A certain gear will not make you a better photographer, but instead you have to find out for yourself which gear creates what kind of invitation to do with you and inside of you. And I think it ties back to this whole idea of intuition and instinct. It starts here, of looking at the tools that you have available, and then deciding what feels best for the thing that I want to do, and that also fits my way of looking at the world. And again, that ties back to Henri Cartier-Bresson, who at the end of the day always called his Leica an extension of his eye. And that's what the camera should be. It should be an invitation to take certain photographs, and it should be an extension of your eye and nothing else. It's not about the price, it's not about the lens quality, it's about what you want to create with it and what it encourages you to shoot. That's at least my perspective on gear here. So I hope you enjoyed this special episode, this first episode of Personal Exposure. If you liked it, please let me know in the comment section below, and if you didn't like it, also let me know. I'm really curious to see your comments and to get your feedback. Also, don't forget to like this video and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this or our gear reviews and others, please just subscribe to this channel. Jules, Greg and I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.